Well, good Abend. It's the second time that MotoE has taken place at the Sachsenring, at the venue once again with its new status as a championship and as well as a Ducati manufactured series. Last time we were here in 2019, it was fireworks then. 2 races this weekend, but first it's qualifying. We're about to get going in MotoE. Let's get it on! Well, good afternoon. Just 4 points separate the top 3 in the World Championship classification coming into round 3 of the 2023 Championship. As you can see, since we were last on air with MotoGP, it was absolutely bone dry. The best lap times of the day so far in that session, but it is absolutely sodden wet here for MotoE qualifying. Drama as during the Northern Talent Cup free practice 2 session they just had on track, the heavens open, and boy oh boy did they well and truly open. I was trudging through rivers in my waterproof walking shoes. I trudged over hills and mountains to get here. Incredible stuff. I mean, the efforts we go through for this job, Neil Morrison, just astounding. Much like the fans out there in the campsite. Hope some of their tents don't get too washed away in that heavy downpour. It was pretty something, but it does make for a very exciting qualification session, setting the grid for tomorrow's races. My name's Matt Dunn, alongside me is Neil Morrison. You can see some of the evaporation happening out on track. Neil, is it forecast to rain during this? I mean, look at the clouds outside. Are they going to come over? Is the track just going to get faster as the sessions go on? What's your take? What's going on?
It's raining, Matt. Well, it was raining. It's not raining anymore. Looks as though we're going to have 2 fully wet sessions. As you can see, these are the names that are going automatically into Q2. The top 8 from practice, names like Ferrari, Torres, Garzo, Krummenacher, Casadei, Granado, Zacconi and Rabat, they can take it easy and relax for 10 minutes. The riders on the left of your screen, they will be appearing in Q1, battling out for 2 spots in Q2 later.
Up, down to pit lane, straight away though before the session gets underway. Fran Wilder's caught one of the Q2 runners in former race winner in the class, no less, Alessandro Cecchinello. Take it away, Fran. Apparently not. We haven't actually got Fran with us, unfortunately. I thought we did. I heard her talking in my ear and things like that. But there we go. We are looking at the MotoE grid, ready and waiting. Fran, are you with us? No, I don't think she is, unfortunately. So, yeah, Fran's only available to us privately in our ears. We've not got her on the public line or anything like that, unfortunately. So that's a big shame. Can't hear from Alessandro Cecchinello, but we can look on our screens at the riders getting ready for this session. Well, I tell you what, Neil, I was very, very excited after Mugello. We saw Andrea Mantovani get that first victory there. Not quite worked out for him in the free practice session so far, though, today, has it?
No, it certainly hasn't. Had 2 sessions earlier today, and, well, quite interesting times. Matteo Ferrari was the fastest man off the lot. Fastest man by some distance as well. Half a second he had on hand over Jordi Torres in second. Hector Garza was third. Then we had Krummenacher, Casadei and Granado filling out the top 6. But yeah, as Matt mentioned, the man who thrilled us in Mugello, taking race 1 victory there, Andrea Mantovani, 10th place in the combined practice standings, which means he goes into Q1 in this session. What weird conditions we had. We just had a massive downpour where it was really raining cats and dogs, and yeah, the sun is back out.
Let's try, just before we get going again, do a little test, shall we? Fran, are you able to join us now with your connection issue solved?
Hello. Well, you can tell me, because I know we've been able to speak to each other privately, but it's not come on the live. But now I am, yes?
Yes, we can hear you.
Brilliant.
Take it away.
I will go and get Alessandro again then. He's just across pit lane from where I am, and I'll come back to you in about 20 seconds.
That's absolutely fine, Fran. Appreciate it very much. So looking at Tito about on our screens, getting a bit frantic there. Worth noting that this morning's first session was actually quite wet for the riders out on track, and it dried off significantly for the afternoon, but not they weren't quite on the lap record pace that we saw back in 2019. Fran, take it away with Alessandro Cecchinello.
So yes, better late than never. And same for you into Q2. It's been a bit of a tougher start with the new Ducati for you, but we've seen you win before in MotoE. You've been super fast. What's made the difference so far at the Sachsenring? Is it just more time on the bike?
Yeah, no, we are improving a lot the feeling with the bike, with the team. We are working very well. So I think that soon we will be much more in the front. But anyway, I start to feel good with the bike, so I think that we will enjoy very soon.
And what is it that you're missing? Where do you feel is the biggest improvement that you can make? Because you've got quite an aggressive riding style as well. We want to see you back in there at the front.
Yeah, for sure. I'm back on MotoE from Moto2. That is very different, especially the tire. I need to take more confidence with the front tire, but I'm learning every lap. So, always say, I think that we will be back very soon.
Hopefully so. Well, thanks very much for joining us.
Thank you very much. Bye.
Yes, thank you very much, Fran. And Alessandro Zacconi then 7th place he was in the combined practice times. Just 1.2 seconds, I should say, off top spot. Worth noting, Neil, that Matteo Ferrari, he's actually got the all-time lap record still. That's, that's again what we're seeing, the improvements of the bikes. Not only is this from last year, but also he's taking the lap record off the bikes in their first iteration in 2019 that we had back then, the very, very first year. So they were even more different than the Ducatis are between the Energicas of last year. Normally been seeing about a 3-second gap between the lap records, haven't we, recently? So I think just taking it by a couple of tenths or so probably shows, I think, that the weather forecast, the weather conditions back in free practice 2 weren't as optimal as they could well be tomorrow.
Yeah, I think that's probably a fair assessment. 3 seconds, or just over 3 seconds, is what we've seen from the first 2 rounds of the year, with MotoE getting under the lap record this year, obviously with the new Ducati machinery. We won't be approaching those lap times in this session though, nor in the session just after. It is full wets for everyone, and you can see there is a decent amount of standing water on track, but safe enough for these guys to run. And you would have to say that this session could open up some possibilities to some of the classes wet weather specialists that maybe haven't been having the best of time in the dry. This man I'm looking at in particular, Kevin Manfredi, obviously got his first ever podium in the MotoE World Championship last weekend at Mugello with a fantastic second place in the wet race too. And Manfredi, I would say, should be a favourite probably to progress through this session.
Absolutely. Another guy who's quite partial to some wet weather, I think, in previous runs has been Hector Garza. So he is 3rd on the combined practice times coming into qualifying. But I think he had a bit of a dramatic session earlier on today. Fran was down with him in pit lane to find out the story.
Yes, indeed. So, Hector, I saw you right after practice 2, and you asked me if we had recorded what you described yourself as an amazing high side at turn 1. But you're all okay. 3rd overall again, super quick again at the Sachsenring. First of all, what was that crash like? Second of all, how are you feeling now for this qualifying session with some pretty difficult conditions again?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, as you say, it was an amazing high side. I was feeling it like it's amazing, but maybe was not that amazing. But well, yeah, for sure happy with the work. Still a little bit far away, but I think I can get this gap from Ferrari. Now the track is a little bit too wet, but for sure I think it's not going to be dry. Step by step, every lap counts. So let's see what we can do and what we have tomorrow.
And we've always seen you guys in MotoE give the Michelin wet tyres a really good review. We saw it at Mugello as well. The pace was pretty high despite the conditions. Conditions like this, when it's very sunny and the floor is wet but there's no rain, what do you choose in that scenario?
Well, for sure now the conditions are fully wet. I don't think we can achieve any type of goal with a dry condition, with a dry tire, sorry. And well, we shall see. For sure now in the rain each lap is you are going faster. So let's see how it's going.
Thanks very much for talking to us and best of luck.
Thank you. Bye.
Always worthwhile hearing from Hector Garza. Big fan of that man right there. He's a really real entertaining fella. So on our screens we've got Kevin Manfredi and Luca Salvadori ahead of us. I've got to say, Neil, I went actually to take a look at the MotoE paddock after the second practice session. Wanted to catch up with a couple of the riders and just sort of observe how they work after each individual session. Hector Garza wasn't the only rider to go down in that one with his high side. Mattia Casadei I saw go down. Had gone down, but all okay. He was getting some leathers changed from his supplier Alpine Stars, and they were taking some gravel out of his bike. Garzo's was being looked over by some of the Ducati engineers, but apart from that, all okay for most of them. Caught up with Eric Granado and saw how he was adapting, because obviously he missed that first round as well, didn't he? And Eric, worth mentioning that he was 6th in the combined practice times. A rider that's actually getting used to the traction control, and I wanted to mention that because this place, particularly with so much time on the side of the tyre and things like that. That new traction control that they've got this year must be coming in real handy for these riders in these kind of conditions.
Yeah, absolutely. Michelin tyres as well obviously have a great set of wet tyres, and we can see that lap times coming in thick and fast. Improvements coming in as well, and Mikel Pons going quickest with a 140.093, 7 thousandths quicker that is than Kevin Manfredi. Then it's 4 tenths back to Hikaru Okubo. Salvadori is over a second off the front in 4th. So at the moment, 2 men in this session seem to be able to make the difference in these conditions, and that man there, the number 77, Mikel Pons, is one of them.
Yeah, we've got to say with Manfredi as well, I was taking a peek in the Seat 58 garage there, and he had his little scribbly notebook out and a very fancy looking pen, and just scribbling away to himself as the crew chief was the one crew chief that I think both him and Kevin Zanoni share was working away and chatting with Zanoni on his feedback. Absolutely no... like all the riders here, very, very serious indeed, all coming from various backgrounds in racing, different championships, nationalities, etc. And it was really, really good to see them working so hard to get things right here. Let's go back down to pit lane though. One of the riders that we are now becoming accustomed to seeing supporting MotoE, Jake Dixon with Fran Wild.
Yeah, the self-described MotoE legend, Jake Dixon. Well, Jake, it's great to see you down in pit lane here again. I can see as well one of your Moto3 teammates, David Alonso, taking a good interest. Seems to be a great atmosphere at Aspar. What's bringing you down here in MotoE for Q1 to, again, I see supporting Geordie?
I just said to him, today it is nothing less than P1, so he's got to go full commitment. He's on it this weekend, and I'm babysitting David Alonso, so yeah, he needs looking after.
Sounds like they should be paying you an extra wage to be doing some counselling, bit of team managing along with Nico.
I think, look, the boss is over there. If you can just increase the wage by another, 40 grand, it'll be all right.
Well, okay, that's quite cheap, to be fair.
Yeah, to be fair.
And David's looking at us quite worried, like we're going to get him involved in the conversation as well.
You want to speak some English?
Yeah, speak some English. David, what do you think of the new Ducati looking at it? You ride Moto3 bike, obviously. You've already been on the podium. How does this bike look to you?
This MotoE bike.
You like, no?
Yeah, well, it's something different. At the moment, I prefer more.
No, but we put you on the bike next.
Oh, I prefer engine bike, you know. Yeah.
Fair enough. We'll convert you. Right, thanks a lot, guys. Best of luck.
Electric power.
I would definitely like to say David Alonso is way too small to be trying to have a go on these bikes. I think that's the main issue that he's got.
I didn't want to say that
right
to his face, but yeah, I think he needs to grow a little more, maybe.
Yeah, Fran, you put that small child in his place, yeah? No, I'm a big fan of David Alonso, ex-Red Bull Rookies champion as well. And Neil, I mean, just worth saying, I mean, how nice is that for the Aspar team? But 2 of their riders are coming down to spend time with both Maria Herrera and Jordi Torres in their MotoE sessions. I think that goes a long way into helping that team head towards the front, eh?
Yeah, absolutely. Jordi Torres does have a good cheerleader on his side of the garage. Torres has been looking good here at the Sachsenring. Obviously, Mugello was a new experience for him in the MotoE machine, and it took him a little bit of time to get up to speed. Never quite had the pace in wet or dry to fight with the front men, but 9th and 5th places for him just a week ago means that his championship challenge is still on track, and it is very tight at the top of the MotoE World Championship at the moment. Torres leading, of course, 2 points clear of Matteo Ferrari. Hector Garzo just 4 points back, so 3 riders covered by 4 points heading into round 3.
Of course, it is an 8-round series this year as well, 16 races in total, so many points still left up for grabs in Moto. We're barely just getting started, are we? But you certainly can't win the MotoE Championship in one race or at this early in the season, but you can potentially lose it, you could say. We're getting towards that stage in it, aren't we? But as we clock down with 30 seconds to go, we're looking at the rider on our screens who's at the top of the times, due to go through to qualifying 2 in just a few moments, along with Nicholas Spinelli. Neil, what did you make of Spinelli back in Mugello race 2? 4th position, making up for that another rookie error in race 1.
Yeah, he looks fast in both wet and dry, doesn't he, Matt? Obviously crashed out of maybe a top 4, maybe even a podium challenge in race 1, and then brought it home for a really strong result in race 2. 4th position, his best result in the MotoE World Championship to date, and he's on course to go through to Q2 currently, but It looks as though Kevin Manfredi might have something to say about that. Luca Salvadori as well, the number 23, riding for Pramac, of course, this year, comes across the line. He goes second. Manfredi goes back to first.
Yeah, but Spinelli takes the top spot and Pons once again then. So how about that? A flurry of fast laps. Kubo's in there. Pushes Pons out. How many riders have we got left to go? I think that might be it, Neil, isn't it? So it's a Kubo and Spinelli who look like they're going through right at the last depth of the session. Excellent stuff. All the riders looking across to the big screens to see where they finished respectively. Go on, Hikari Kubo.
Yeah, we haven't really seen much of the Japanese rider in 2023. Kubo, by his own reasonably high standards, has been a bit subdued in the MotoE category so far. 5th place to start the year, but that was more 5th place, I think, taking advantage of many crashers up ahead. And then, well, he's had a 10th, a 15th and a 12th in the races since then. But the Japanese rider coming back into his own here at the Sachsenring. But Nicola Spinelli, the rookie, of course, in MotoE this year, is the fastest man in Q1.
Well then, good on Spinelli, heading through then to join the other riders in Q2, then fighting up for those top spots on the grid. Pole position, the roll for pole coming right up next, ladies and gents watching on. And I tell you what, that was probably one of the more exciting qualifying sessions we've had in MotoE so far this year. A flurry of fastest laps coming in right at the session. So Spinelli comes down the waterfall. Really is a bit more of a waterfall at the moment, isn't it, with that amount of water on there. And what a special track this is. It must be so much fun, because we know how high the corner speed tends to be in MotoE here. Of course, that was thrown back to that first ever race we had of the MotoE World Cup back in 2019. Nicky Tooley took that victory, who will be winning either races tomorrow, lunchtime and in the afternoon. Well then, let's look at the final results. Spinelli takes top spot and goes through to Q2 along with the Japanese rider Hikari Kubo, 137s apiece, a quarter of a second separating the two of them. Just the 10th back was Pons from Mantovani, Manfredi, Salvadori and Perez down towards P7. Zanoni, Finello and Herrera will be disappointed in their results. I think particularly Zanoni would have had higher hopes. How many times have they been around the Sachsenring? Not many, I suspect, in their careers so far. So then, up next we do have Q2. Ferrari looking very, very strong in the dry conditions. One of the fastest in the wet, though, was actually Randy Krummenacher in this morning's P1 session. Join us in just a moment's time as we look for the fight for pole position. Well, no sting, but we're back. Here we are. The Sachsenring, the glorious wind farm. It's a very underrated part of the world, this. Oh, we're going to get a sting in 30 seconds. I'll be quiet then. Goodbye. welcome back. Hope you enjoyed your 30-second rest from our voices. And here we go, MotoE qualifying 2 coming your way from this gloriously underrated part of the world, which is what I was going to say. Beautiful rolling hills here. People say in Tuscany, in Mugello, the rolling hills of Tuscany. We're talking about this on the way here. I don't think they are rolling hills. They're like mini mountains. They're far too steep to be referred to as rolling. These are far more rolling and undulating. But a really, really nice part of the world. Some great food, great beverages of the drinking kind. Lovely people, and yeah, a great Grand Prix. Absolutely packed out with all the fans you can imagine. Very, very passionate indeed. I've been spending a lot of time in the Moto2, Moto3 paddock too. And even some of the Moto3 riders who you wouldn't think have a bit of a fan base yet. Plenty of fans come up to him, perfect English, saying like, "Oh, I saw your result. You got your personal best last time around. Congratulations," and things like that. And even it blows away the riders with how knowledgeable a lot of the German fans are. But enough of that. This is the roll for pole qualifying 2. Here we go. Ferrari, Torres, Garzo, Criminaca, Casadei, Granado, Zacconi, Rabat, and with Spinelli and Akubo from Q1. The Titans of MotoE about to get it going on a very wet track here at the Sachsenring. Cannot wait for this one. I think, as we saw in Q1, Neil Morrison, the latter times will just tumble and tumble and tumble. But will Spinelli or Akubo have a bit of an advantage, do you think, given they're several laps in advance on the circuit?
Yeah, you would certainly think so. Those guys obviously have 10 minutes off experience in the rain, and proper wet conditions as well. You mentioned some of the conditions they faced in P1 earlier today, first thing before the first Moto3 session of the day, and the track was damp. I wouldn't necessarily call it fully wet, so I think they might have a little advantage on these guys, at least at the start of the session. But do expect the times just to continue to tumble as the session progresses, because I don't think we're going to get any more rain. Just looking above our commentary box.
No, well, maybe. Who knows? There's some very dark clouds overhead there, aren't there?
A fan
from in pit lane, what do you think?
Well, I can give you the full weather report of the day. The very first session of the day was spitting a little bit, mixed conditions, mainly there when everyone arrived at the track. It was like, oh, this is going to be a hard one to get any information from. Second one, little spits of rain, but dry, as we saw, Ferrari breaking that lap record. This one, though, I feel like my question to Hector Garzo was now overwhelmingly optimistic, because now the sun has gone in, it's still very, very wet. And that one Q1 session, definitely not enough to create a dry line that would have been necessary. So, yeah, it's gone pretty dull again down here. It feels like it might rain. I'm regretting the use of the poncho a little bit less. Let's see, because it changed very quickly right before they came out here to do these sessions.
It does. It really, really changes very, very fast here, doesn't it? Those rolling hills pushing all sorts of weather systems around and over the track. There is Jordi Torres then getting ready for this one. Second on the combined practice times. And, of course, he will have never been here before, would he, Neil? For MotoE, at least, obviously.
Yeah, not for MotoE. Jordi joined the series in 2020, but great memories of this track, of course. The scene of his first ever MotoE victory in 2014.
2, not MotoE.
Sorry, yes, Moto2 victory.
Yeah, I was going to say.
I thought you meant 2002 then. I was like, wow.
How old is he? But yes, yeah, exactly. Yeah, Moto2 victory here. So Jordi does certainly know his way around. It's such a tricky track, Neil, isn't it? Because I mean, just give us a bit of an impression of what you speak to a lot of riders and obviously commentating on many other other series as well. No real place here where you're properly. A lot of time it's not really the key to stand it up on the fat part of the tyre and crack open the throttle. It's very much that throttle management, not wanting the weight of the bike to go forward and back too much, trying to keep a smooth, even throttle, really.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, from turns 4 all the way around to turns 10, it's all about throttle control, being, I guess, patient and consistent with your throttle application, and yeah, not too many heavy braking points on the track in the first half of the lap, but then the second part is a bit of a contrast. Down into turn 12, turn 13, then of course turn 1, you've got really heavy braking zones. So it's a bit of a combination, I guess, of being strong in those zones as well as having decent agility through the long lefts that seem to keep on going and going through turns 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 and 10, just gradually building speed up through there.
Well then, 10 minutes to go Qualifying 2 begins for MotoE. First out of the blocks, Tito Rabat. He's got Randy Krummenacher, the Cruminator, as he called himself on Twitter, out on track ahead of him. Wants to get out fastest, quickest. Rabat going to slot in behind him for a bit of a tow. Of course, Krummenacher, the only Swiss rider here now, replacing Egerter as sort of the home hero, I suppose, Neil, for Krummenacher. Mind you, there are always some Swiss flags wherever we go in the world. Eric Granado getting ready to head out as well. He's quite a fan of these conditions, and of course we'll have memories from here too back in the day. He did actually tell me, watch out for turn 7. Probably won't be getting some big slides on as they would have in the dry, but we are still finding plenty of left-hand power slides on these MotoE machines now, even without traction control.
Yeah, absolutely. This was obviously the first time I got to see MotoE bikes in the flesh back in 2019, and I'd watched just at turn 7. Seeing Eric Granado light up the rear tyre was one of the highlights, I think, of that particular weekend. And speaking of Eric Granado, the man who won last time out at Mugello in that fantastic wet weather race, well, we're going to pass it on to Fran, because she's managed to grab hold of his team boss, Lucio Cecchinello, to see how his men are faring this weekend.
Exactly, perfect segue, Neil. So as you said, it's Lucio who's down here with us in pit lane, and they were just talking about Eric's win in Mugello. That was pretty incredible. I guess from your position as well, having him sit out the first round and then seeing immediately back on the top step was something quite special.
Yeah, it was really special. Really special. We had no doubt about his competitiveness level, because, you know, in the winter test he performed really well. He was absolutely leading the 2 tests we had in Jerez and in Barcelona. And then the race 1 in Mugello was, for him, was not so good. I mean, he finished P6. He didn't have a good start, but also we understood that he, of course, after being so long, so many weeks at home, he needed a little bit time. But then the victory and the race 2 was definitely fantastic, and this is also very important for him to realize that he can repeat and he can be at the same level as before.
And 28 points is a lot less than 35 as well.
yes, of course. Anyway, thanks the championship. Thanks to the organizers, the championship now this year is longer. We have more races, we have more opportunities. Anything can happen, so everything is still open.
Well, hoping the best, and let's see how he goes now.
Thank you.
Thanks, Lucio.
Thanks, Fran. Thanks as well to Lucio Cecchinello. Great to hear from the Italian team manager about his riders in the MotoE class. And Matt, just looking at the practice times from earlier, Granado down in 6th position. He was 0.8 of a second away from Ferrari, but as Fran was saying, he does love these conditions so much. You have to say Granado could be the favourite for the pole in this session.
Yeah, I would say so as well. He confessed he wasn't pushing at all in those mixed conditions in the morning. What's the point? And I think he said he kept the wet tyres on for quite a while in that one, and then the second one is just sort of exploratory, really. We know he can really turn a screw when the time calls for it, as is right now in qualifying. So Eric, I think he's certainly not one to count out of this session. Neither is Hector Garza, who's gone in provisional pole in those first sets of flying laps. We'll be seeing the likes of Granado coming through in a short while. Here he is coming down the waterfall, all on his own there, turn 11. Super fast, and look at that, absolutely well on the pace already. Casadei takes over at the top meanwhile, but there's red sectors all over the shop, Neil. Exactly what we're expecting to happen. Just riders getting quicker and quicker, sector by sector. Torres 2 seconds quicker at the moment as well. So how about that? Going to be a very exciting 5 minutes.
Yep, and 2 of the men from Q1, as you said, Matt, look as though they're on course to go to the top of this session. Kubo and Spinelli. Kubo goes fastest there, the number 78, just behind Eric Granado on track. Torres then replaces the Japanese rider at the front, but Spinelli nearly 3 seconds up through split number 3. I do feel that the Italian might have something to say about this, and there he goes across the line. 0.8 of a second faster is the number 29.
You would certainly say he's got a bit of an advantage there, having done those laps previously along with Akubo. So yes, this is one of those occasions in these wet weather conditions where actually going through Q1 is no bad thing, although I wouldn't say that should be an intentional strategy for people to play, and I think they're all agreed on that as well. Smoothness is the key, as you can see. Very careful throttle application from Garzo out of the final corner and across the line. He takes back provisional pole as the number 4.
Yeah, these lap times are just going to keep tumbling and tumbling. Obviously, we had a pretty dramatic end to the race. Race 2 at Mugello, red flags brought the race to a premature close after Mattia Casadei's massive crash through the Biondetti chicane. Thankfully, as Casadei comes across the line to go 3rd, the Italian, as you can see, is A-OK. His bike was very much not, and just bumped into Nicola Goubert yesterday, who said basically they couldn't see the light on the back of the bike to say whether it was okay, whether it was safe to approach it or not. I think the bike was so destroyed that the light had stopped working, so they had to err on the side of caution, stop the race so they could approach the bike with caution and yeah, take their time before getting it out of the gravel trap. Yeah, that is the key with MotoE, isn't it? When the bikes go down, they have got the safety light to check that it's all okay to be handled in the right way. You've got to look for that green light before you go and touch it. Which is a very good practice indeed, as Torres takes over the top once again by half a second that time around. Spinelli comes across the line. He isn't able to massively improve. He still lies 4th, which would put him heading at the 2nd row of the grid for tomorrow's races. But what can Garzo do? Coming down into turn number 13, Queckenberg, as it's officially known, accelerates out. Garzo half a second off. He could go on the front row here, the provisional spot on the front row, and he does. 2nd place for the number 4. It's been a steady start to the year, hasn't it? Quite impressive from Hector Garzo, and of course there'll be a little bit of extra pressure on his shoulders this weekend, with it being the Dynavolt Intact GP's team's home race here at the Saxon Ring. Both him and Krummenacher, a little bit more expectation on their shoulders. But the likes of Granado, Akubo and Torres, man, they're still not done.
No, absolutely not, and they'll probably get another crack at it as well, won't they? Or 2 more, I would say, for the likes of Granado. So he's coming through the penultimate corner now. A little bit of a wiggle on the rear wheel there. He was actually saying that traction control. I asked him, I really got to chat to you so far, Eric, how are you finding the new bikes with the traction control and Ducati, etc. He really, really likes it. But he has found actually the traction control, his ability to apply the throttle, sometimes he feels it holds him back a little bit than what he would have liked, but did acknowledge that, as we've talked about quite extensively off air, is how much has this sort of improved the safety of it this year, and with the lack of crashes that we've had, particularly sort of the high sides and things like that. So certainly a good thing, even if Eric feels that he could perhaps go a little bit quicker without them.
Yeah, absolutely. Ducati bringing a pretty sophisticated electronics package on these new MotoE machines that they've designed for this year. The Ducati V21L, which is already impressed with its lap times and its performance pretty much right across the board. The riders are in agreement as Hector Garzo goes back to the fastest time, and you can see there that the gaps are really, really tight now at the top of this session, just 0.05 of a second covering the top 3.
There is Ciccone across the line then. This will be his last flying lap. Same for the likes of Ferrari and Krummenacher. Krummenacher looking, it was a bit wide there for Ferrari, I should say. That'll probably scupper their attempt at pole position now. So this will be the last flying lap coming in for Casadei, who provisionally moves up to P4. But I would say you've got some very, very fast laps coming in from the likes of Granado, Akubo and Torres as well. They will still get one more lap too.
Yeah, and Torres is 0.8 of a second, nearly 0.9 of a second up through split number 3. As you can see in the bottom of your screen just there, Granado's going to take pole here at 35.2. Let's see what Akubo can do. He can't quite match the Brazilian, but Jordi Torres is the man to watch coming out of the final turn now.
He does take it provisionally then, so one more flying lap for Torres then. Will Spinelli make it across the line with 30 seconds to go now in order to set a final flying lap too? This could be perfectly timed from the Italian rookie in the class. That's it. All the riders are across the line. These will be the final flying laps coming in. The first one across the finish line will be Hector Garzo then, it seems. He's got 10 seconds. I don't think he's going to make it for another lap. So this will be it from Hector. He could well go provisional pole with this. Out the final corner he comes. It's 1 second to go. The finish flag is out. He crosses the line. He does go provisional pole. But is it going to stand? I don't really think so for Hector. This could be perfectly timed by the likes of Spinelli.
Absolutely. I held my breath as he exited the final turn on the white line, but thankfully managed to keep it all in line. Good lap that from Hector Garzo. Could it be enough for pole position? He's never actually had a pole in the MotoE class before. Second place is his best qualifying today. He's qualified there 4 times. Granado, you can see, has lost out ever so slightly through split number 3, and Jordi Torres once again so strong in sectors 2 and 3. It's going to take something pretty special to hold back Torres from getting another pole position.
And Spinelli looks like he's lost it as well, so this could be brilliant from Jordi Torres. But what about Granado turning it out of the final corner? Across the line he will go up to P2, but what about Torres? This is the rider to watch then. 3/10 up at the third split. Across the line the number 81 comes. He does go pole position with a 1:34.6, and that looks like Neil Morrison. That's it. No other fastest flying laps coming in. It looks like Spinelli, he's currently 5th. Will he move up any positions? He doesn't move up by 1. But that's it. I'm quite surprised. I thought we were going to be seeing some much faster flying laps coming in. But Hector Garzo timed it very well. Second on the grid for him, but Torres on pole.
Yeah, super stuff from Jordi Torres, the championship leader. That is his first pole position of the season in MotoE this year, and his 4th pole position in MotoE history. So super stuff from the Spaniard. And that little pep talk that Jake Dixon gave him just before this session started was bang on the money. He is absolutely on it this weekend.
Yeah, I hope Jake does get a little bit of a cheeky pole position bonus for his aid there as well.
Absolutely. So Torres, Garzo and Granado, the front row of the grid for tomorrow's 2 races. Looking down the order, and I have to say, slightly puzzled by the lack of performance from Matteo Ferrari. 9th place for the Championship Challenger. He was on the podium in the rainy conditions at Mugello just a week ago, and he was nearly 3 seconds slower than Jordi Torres in that session. That's a big old amount of time in what is the shortest lap of the season.
Very interesting, isn't it, as Garzo very frustrated with himself for not getting that pole position, it seems. Then he maybe thought he timed it to perfection, but not so. The thing is with Ferrari, Neil, he is more than accustomed to fighting through from the back of the pack, isn't he? As we can see, Jake Dixon walking down there to greet his teammate in Parc Ferme. Eric Granado will be joining them as well. The 51, a great performance there in qualifying. He does do well in these conditions. Not well enough for Jordi Torres. That's a very clean start as well there from Granado. Nicely done.
Well, Granado has racked up 9 pole positions in his career. He didn't quite manage to make that one. 0.3 of a second off Jordi Torres. No one was beating the Spaniard in those conditions today. But I'm sure Eric will be perfectly pleased with the place on the front row. You have to say it's been a pretty impressive comeback from injury for the Brazilian after missing the first round of the season. He has managed to get himself back in the title fight somewhat. Needs another couple of good races here, and then of course Assen in a week's time. But Jordi Torres, the championship leader, pole position for him.
We'd definitely say he could do with a bit of misfortune befalling the likes of Garzo, Ferrari and Torres, couldn't he, ahead of him. But yes, Granado could well be in the fight. The rider with the most wins in MotoE history, as Torres gives a big hug to all his teammates down there then. Excellent stuff, including his team manager and former 125cc world champion Nico Tirol. Check out all the Ducati engineers down there, Neil, taking a very keen interest in their bikes and how they perform. They don't do things by halves at the Italian manufacturer, do they? Of course, massive level of resource at their disposal. Still good to see as Jake Dixon just negotiating the terms of his bonus for his help there. He's smiling, so I'm sure he's going to get at least 20%.
I thought we agreed to 25%. Maybe that's what he's just saying.
Well then, we should be hearing from the riders fairly briefly. discussing how they did their excellent performances. Eric Granado, the first one we'll be hearing from Parc Ferme with Fran Wild, then the Brazilian in on the front row of the grid for the Lucio Cecchinello MotoE Grand Prix von Deutschland. He's down with Fran.
He is indeed. So, Eric, when you rode into Parc Ferme, you look pretty satisfied with that. It's not quite pole position, but it's a front row. Are you happy enough given the challenging session today?
Yes, I'm very happy. You know, being the Parc Ferme is always special. I hope this one they don't take me tomorrow against in third position, but it was a nice session. I was feeling so good on the bike. Every lap I was improving. I have a lot of confidence with the bike, so yes, I'm happy with the job. Even if it's wet or dry tomorrow, we are ready to fight. And yeah, it's good to be here in Parc Ferme and very motivated for the race tomorrow.
Well, best of luck.
Valeu, obrigado.
Yes, absolutely, Neil. What he was referring to there was his tyre pressures, deeming him moving down a place on the grid for Saturday's races back in Mugello. So another trip to Parc Ferme for Eric, but hopefully he keeps this one this time as well. So next up, we'll be hearing from Hector Garzo then. I wonder why he was a bit displeased. I'm guessing he just wanted that pole position. He's down in Parc Ferme with Frank.
Yeah, I think they saw you on the live, Hector, shaking your head with some friendly anger towards the man who stole pole position from you, Jordi. But front row for you, good stuff in a difficult session. You've had a really consistent season so far. Do you think it bodes well for tomorrow?
Yeah, thank you very much. I needed this feeling after Mugello race because the second race on Mugello in wet conditions was a little bit crazy. I had zero confidence. Now I feel a little bit better. Keep pushing every lap, as I told you before. The time is coming all the time in wet, lap by lap. But well, yeah, Jordi always has this little thing more than me. But what can I do, no? He's a MotoE rider and champion. But well, we will try to fight tomorrow.
Well, we'll see tomorrow. Thanks, Hector.
Thank you.
Nice one, Hector. Good to see him back in Parc Ferme as well. Always an exciting competitor to watch. What can he do in tomorrow's races? I guess it will be eyes on the skies. The weather forecast today was actually about 20% chance of rain around about lunchtime, but these sort of showers that roll in caught quite a few people off guard, I think, and I wonder whether we'll see some very iffy weather tomorrow as well or not. That could well have a big impact on the race results. But hey, it just makes it more spicy for us. What about your pole position man, though? Jordi Torres. He's done it. Another pole in MotoE. He's down in Parc Ferme.
He has. So, Jordi, I spoke to Jake on the live before you headed out, and he was like, nothing but P1 will do today. He had a lot of confidence in you, and you got the job done there. Final lap round. How does that feel starting from pole?
Yeah, we are in a great position for both races tomorrow. I listened very well to Jake Dixon because he gave me some tips that helped me a lot to drive better and better in each lap, to improve, to release the brake more early, to take more speed in the middle of the corner. But for sure, the tires in a wet condition work pretty well, are fantastic riding a wet in this condition, no? With this tire, also this engine. And it's amazing, and also it's very good for be more concentrated when you're riding, because you don't have any sound to disturb you. You are 100 concentrated in your lane, in your brakes, in your acceleration, and you feel very well when you start to slide in the entry corner, also in the exit corner. Very well.
Okay, well, best of luck tomorrow. Maybe you can give Jake some tips for a Moto2 win here.
Yeah, I listen very well to Jake because he knows very well the track.
Oh, lovely. Excellent stuff from Jordi Torres there. Really decent sort of analysis of how to go fast here in the Saxon Ring. And I would say let's get Jake Dixon a wild card in MotoE, because clearly he knows what he's talking about if he's dishing out tips and they're working for pole position, Neil.
I've already had Jordi in Moto2 this year, of course, so yeah, it's about time that we got Jake into this class. But he's been looking pretty good in Moto2 at the Saxon Ring here today as well. Certainly in wet conditions this afternoon. Also very fast in the dry. It's been a good day on the whole then for the Aspar team.
Let's get a look at these final results then. Jordi Torres will start both of tomorrow's races on pole position, ahead of Hector Garzo and Eric Granado. Nicolas Spinelli takes fourth and heads the second row of the grid from Hikaru Ikubo, Mattia Casadei. Randy Criminaca, the Criminator, in seventh place ahead of Alessandro Sacconi. Matteo Ferrari in ninth. Rabat heads the fourth row of the grid from 10th ahead of Pons, Mantovani and Manfredi. Salvadori, Perez and Zanoni are your top 16, with Alessio Finello and Maria Herrera bringing up the rear here for tomorrow's races in MotoE. Absolutely brilliant qualifying session for Jordi Torres there. Real top class. Well, I hope that's all whet your appetite for tomorrow's races. They will be a blockbuster, as they usually are. We are returning to the Sachsenring for the second time in MotoE, now as a World Championship, now on Ducatis. Cannot wait for that. We will see you all tomorrow. Have a great, safe Friday night. Auf Wiedersehen.